Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and squirrels from around the world. Wonderful to see you this wonderful afternoon, evening, morning, wherever it is in the world that you might be. It's really good that you guys could come out and check this out for a short period of time before I'm heading out of country, and you won't hear much from me over that period of time. So, you know how it goes. Anyhow, on the upside, I've been keeping really busy. Good to see you, Rap. Good to see you. Been keeping really busy trying to get all of the very ends of everything that needs to be done before I go. And I want to leave you guys on a up note before I'm heading out of the country. Why has this person entered my network? That's really odd. Windows device. Small boy has entered my network. That's a little strange. And they're moving pretty damn quick on here. I'm going to have to research this real quick. Give me just a second. Someone's hacking into my network. So give me just a minute. I'm going to pause this, but I will be right back. I just need to find out what exactly is going on. So give me a second. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Ooh, little worried. Looked like someone had joined my network that wasn't supposed to be on there. And it turned out it was just my wife's laptop. For whatever reason, she named it Small Boy. I think it had to do with her puppy dog. She was calling him the little man. Well, her old dog she called the little man. This one she calls Small Boy. So I think it was her. I hadn't really thought about it. She was like, "Oh, that's the name of my laptop." I was like, "Oh, isn't that sweet?" Yeah, here I was thinking that somebody had hacked into my network. That always worries me. Anyhow, so we're talking about the Hmm. The Fall City cult, which I'll give you a little bit of just a little bit of background here on this on this area. Now, Fall City, probably a lot of people know what Fall City is, although they may not know its history. So why don't I present that to you here? There we go. This is Fall City, Massachusetts, home of Lizzie Borden. She was born in 1860. She was tried in court of her stepmother, Abby Borden, and her father, Andrew Borden. She was acquitted, and no other person was accused. She remains infamous for their murders. The murders occurred on August 4th, 1892, in Fall River, Massachusetts. Her father's body was discovered on the couch in the living room, and her stepmother's body was found in the upstairs bedroom. Lizzie claimed to have discovered the body of her father about 30 minutes after he came home from his morning errands. Shortly after, Bridget Sullivan found the body of Lizzie's stepmother. Both victims' skulls were crushed by blows to the head with a hatchet. So that's, you can put in charge of your channel while you're gone. I can really mess it up. No, you can't. You can't mess up my channel. Hey, Squaw Bob. So Lizzie Borden was well known in Falls City. She actually stayed there most of her, actually until she passed. She was buried next to her father and mother in a cemetery, and nobody attended the funeral. They really did not like her. Oh, excellent! I love it that you're sewing. So where's the Fall City crazies come from? This little cult. Well, we can talk a little bit about this guy that's a pimp. So this guy, Carl H. Drew, he was the cultist and pimp who organized his stable as a satanic coven. He sacrificed young women who displeased him. Got you. You get your new glasses on the 19th. Awesome. Then you might be able to see my videos whenever I put those out. That'll be awesome. I'll be doing some stuff of Italy and uploading them onto YouTube. I'll probably just upload them and not do any live streams, just a data issue. I'll try to do some at night, which will be like your morning, something like that. So this guy, supposedly 1 to 3, from 79 to 80. He was arrested in April of 1980. He was born in 54. He was, let's see, Donna Levesque, Barbara Raposa, Karen Marsden, and they were all prostitutes. Method of murder was stabbing with a knife and beating with rocks. Yeek. Fall River, Massachusetts. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole in 1981. So, sort of an interesting little character. So this Massachusetts pimp and self-styled Satanist Drew used trappings of his twisted religion to keep prostitutes in line, compelling their participation in cult rituals and threatening savage violence if they tried to reject his protection. Sounds like a real character. Sounds like a real character. Looks like he's got a mullet. Like a really, really hard mullet there. So a little more information about that is, let's see, I've got it here somewhere. I'll read that one a little bit later because it's a little dark, and I'll leave that off. Let me find it right here. Close that. And that's not it. That's not it. I hate whenever that happens. like you've got your stuff set up, but for whatever reason it is not showing. And there it is. Log this bad boy in. My uploads. Oh, web archives. This is going to take a little bit because it's acting really slow. My archives. There we go. Come on. Here it is. So that is not the one I was looking for. Okay, that's the one. Is it? Nope, nope, nope. There is one particular one I wanted to pull up because it had to do with. We can close that. And man, I'm pretty bad at this. I know where it is. I've seen it. Here it is. This is the one. So, a little bit about this particular state key witness in the murder trial of Fitchburg, Massachusetts. The state's key witness in the murder trial of alleged pimp and cult leader Carl Drew testified Monday. Now, this was written March 9th, 1981. Testified Monday, him killed two women and offer their souls to Satan. I believe it said she helped him kill two women and offer their souls to Satan. So Robin Murphy, 17, of Fall River, already convicted of second-degree murder in the death of one woman, Karen Marsden, spent 5 hours under intense questioning from both the prosecution and defense in Worcester. It's not Worcestershire, it's Worcester's Superior Court, opening the second week of the trial. The prosecution witness is expected to conclude her testimony Tuesday. Drew is on trial only in the February 1980 murder and mutilation of Miss Marsden, 20, of Fall River. He was also indicted recently in the slaying of Doreen Levesque, I guess is the name, of New Bedford in October of 79. During the trial, has been testified that two victims were prostitutes. Miss Murphy, who pleaded guilty in exchange for an agreement to testify against Drew, said the two women were murdered as the giving up of their souls to Satan. The prosecution has alleged that Drew, Miss Murphy, and another man yet to stand trial in the case, and we'll get to him in a little bit. He's an interesting character. Took Miss Marsden into a wooded, swampy section of Westport where she was beaten to death, mutilated, and decapitated. Only a portion of her skull was ever found. Miss Murphy said Drew turned the murder into a satanic worship. He spoke in a tongue I didn't understand. His voice was low and scratchy. He took back the knife I used to slit Karen's throat, etched across her chest, dipped his thumb in the blood, and made a cross on my forehead, Miss Murphy told the hushed courtroom. We were kneeling around the body, she said. She testified that following the murder, she went to a friend's house in Fall River where she ate some chicken, drank a beer, and smoked a joint. Imagine you witness a murder, you just head off, and it's just undescribable. She described several cult meetings, she said, took place in Freetown State Forest, and described another meeting at the Dimon Regional School in Fall River where Miss Levesque was murdered. Drew killed Levesque, Miss Murphy testified. The two girls' souls were offered up to Satan, she said. I never have killed a Karen if I hadn't been possessed. I loved her. Oh, I'm sorry. I would have never killed Karen if I hadn't been possessed. I loved her. Sorry. I had the wrong name there. Karen. She also said she was present during the murder of Barbara Raposo, 19, of New Bedford. Another prostitute who was beaten to death November 7th, 1979. Andre Maltais, 44, of Fall River, has since been convicted of that murder. Just imagine witnessing all of these horrible, horrible crimes, and you just go and grab some chicken, grab go grab yourself a beer down at the local pub and just like, well, I guess that's the way that the cookie crumbles, doesn't it? Man. So how did this guy manage to get these people into doing something so horrendous? That's that's frightening that people are easily manipulated into doing things that they otherwise wouldn't have done. It's very interesting. And also, I've got you guys streaming over on Rumble and hanging out there. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to see you over on Rumble. I'm always a little skeptical of the Rumble and making sure that it's sometimes it seems like it's supposed to be working, but not sure if it is. And it's really weird. Rumble's a very funky place. So if I don't get you right away, you'll understand that it's just because, well, I don't always see your chats right away over on Rumble. Whereas with StreamYard, it comes popping right up. So that's why. But creepy. So this guy right here, Andre Maltais. Now he's another interesting one here, because Carl Drew and Robert Murphy were not the only ones that were involved in all of this. And this brings up this gentleman right here. This wonderful guy. Hey, Winning, how's it going? Good to see you. I see you over there on the Rumble side, So this homeboy right here, between 79 and 1980, Barbara Raposa, her boyfriend, Andre Maltais, I believe is his name, files a missing person report with the Fall River Police Department. Raposa was known to participate in drugs and prostitution. So this is his girlfriend that disappears. So on January 26, 1980, Raposa's body is discovered in a wooden area off of Jefferson Street, Fall River. She was discovered with hands bound behind her back, and her skull was crushed. During the investigation of Raposa's death, Maltais, I'm just going to say Maltais. There we go. Maltais frequently spoke with police, provided information about a satanic cult, and offered his assistance in helping solve Doreen Levesque's murder. Maltais denied any knowledge of the crime, however, and a few days later, he contacted police after receiving very specific details of a murder in a psychic dream. That's always a little sketchy. Police brought Maltais to the crime scene, allowing him to describe what he had seen in his dream. It turns out that he knew exactly where the woman's body had been discovered, its positioning, time of death, method of killing, and various other details that were not made public. Maltais was arrested on February 7th, 1980, and charged with the murder of Barbara Raposa. He was convicted of first-degree murder on January 30th, 1981, and sentenced to life in prison. He died in prison in 1998. He was later considered to be a suspect of a few other unsolved area rapes dating back to the early 1970s, but no additional charges were ever brought against him. So he was not the nicest of people here. And this just goes through all of these folks right here, and we'll get a little bit more in depth into that, because there's a woman that's involved in this, and this woman actually was up for parole, and that would have been this lovely lady, Robin Murphy. State's parole board denied parole for the convicted in Fall River's infamous cult murders, saying Robin Murphy has not proved she is willing to be honest or take accountability for her past behavior. Well, imagine that. You go and you eat some chicken after you've, like, chopped someone up. I'm just saying. The board is of the opinion that Robin Murphy has not demonstrated a level of rehabilitative progress that would make her release compatible with the welfare of society. The board wrote in a decision released on November 10th, 2022. So just last year, Murphy, now 59, was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after she confessed to the killing of Karen Marsden, one of the three women and teenage girls gruesomely murdered in Fall River in 79 and 80 by members of a so-called satanic cult. Carl Drew, a pimp and drug dealer whom police had created a self-styled satanic cult to keep the people working for him in line, is serving a life sentence for Marsden's killing. Andre Maltais, an alleged cult member, was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole for the murder of Barbara Raposa, and he has since died in prison. No one has been convicted in the killing of the third victim, Doreen Levesque. In 85, Murphy recanted her testimony and maintained her innocence since then. Oh, that's interesting. So this is her as in 1980s. They always have to pick out the creepiest looking picture. Maybe she just didn't look like Friday all the time. Murphy was 17 at the time of Marsden's killing. She spent more than 20 years in prison before being released on parole to a long-term treatment facility in 2004. She returned to prison in 2011 after allegedly violating her parole by failing to discuss a relationship with a woman who had a felony conviction to her parole officer and being in the vicinity of a drug transaction. Well, that really sucks. She was probably on the straight and narrow and just got slapped back in there over a parole violation. That's horrible. I don't want to hear this. Murphy appeared before the board on March 8th of this year and asked for parole again. During the hearing, she told the parole board that she lied about her involvement in the killings in order to ensure that Drew and Maltais went to prison. Murphy said Maltais sexually abused her for years, starting when she was 11. Oh, man. And she worried he would do the same to other young girls. Marsden, who was in a relationship with Murphy, was scared of Drew and convinced he was going to kill her, she told the board. She described her false testimony as a suicide mission. I didn't care what happened to me, she said. She also told the board she had made progress on addressed her mental health and childhood trauma while incarcerated, and felt confident she could now avoid developing an unhealthy codependent relationships like the one she established with a woman convicted of a felony, which led her to her parole being revoked. Well, isn't that wonderful? So this is Robin Murphy. This is what prison did to Robin Murphy. She went from looking like this to looking like this. Just imagine all that time in prison, 20 years. In its decision, the parole board wrote that it found Murphy's changing story about the murders concerning. The board remains concerned about her ability to tell the truth. When she is admitted to the board, she has lied under oath. The board acknowledged that Murphy has taken advantage of available work, educational, and treatment programming, and it has a positive behavioral record while incarcerated, and yet they recognized that parole decisions in the case of people convicted for crimes allegedly committed when they were minors should take their age into account. Still, they said Murphy is only just beginning to address her codependency issues and not rehabilitated enough to avoid the risk of recidivism. Wow, why did they have to give those long words to those poor people? Fall River State Rep Alan Silva, who worked on the cult member cases as a young police detective, and has testified several times against Murphy being granted parole, said he received a call from the parole board last week about their decision while he was at work in the state house. I'm glad they made that decision, he said, adding that Murphy threatened his life in letters he sent from prison. Murphy will be able to request parole again in 2 years. It's a case that never seems to rest. Thank you, Herald News. Appreciate it. So this is another picture of her with her little braid in her hair. Not really, and it goes through pretty much the same thing that, so she'll be eligible for parole next year. I think 2 years is going to change her any. Ooh, rough day for her. Rough day for her indeed. So this is what got me interested in this particular one right here was, why is it doing that? I don't want to see that. Refresh. All right. Some light spoilers ahead for the Fall River episode titled "What My Soul to Keep." So they made a movie about this, or a little docu-series, whatever you might want to call it, on Epics, I think is what it was, called Fall River. And they tend to exaggerate a lot of these things on TV. Maybe they take a rumor, maybe they take a piece of it that's sort of true, or a rumor that was possibly close to being true, and they create a little docu-series over it. So, Sex for Sale, Satanic. And oh, by the way, there will be spoilers here. So if you're if you're interested in seeing more about Fall River, then you can check it out on Epics. I think it premiered in 2021. So have fun, but there will be spoilers. Sex for Sale, Satanic Cults, Addiction, and a Streak of Brutal Murders of Young Women Too Gruesome to Fathom are all brought to light in a 4-part docuseries, Fall River, from Blumhouse Television. The Jinx, A Wilderness of Error, is premiering May 16th on Epics. Almost 90 years after Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her stepmother 40 whacks in Fall River, Massachusetts. See, this is what I'm talking about. She was not convicted. She was actually acquitted of that crime. And they just never even looked at it. Another macabre killing spree hit the quaint historic New England city. It began in October 13th, 1979, when the naked body of Doreen Levesque, a homeless 17-year-old girl, was found under the high school bleachers. She was tied up with fishing wire. Her head and face were crushed with a rock, and as private investigators Chris Hayes put it, this girl had a baseball bat shoved inside her. That's just gruesome. In the 1960s, 70s, and early 80s, drug addiction rates among juvenile females increased 6 times more than those of men. They were often turning to sex working as to support their habit. It was determined that Levesque was one of those statistics. Don't be a statistic. Don't be a statistic. It was rumored that her murder was ritualistic, barbaric killing tied to a satanic cult that existed among prostitutes and pimps in Fall River, where women's souls were offered to the devil as human sacrifice. The cult leader, a sadistic pimp named Carl Drew. There's Carl Drew. There was a lot to fear in the streets of Carl. Okay. The retribution that was going to be involved if anyone spoke. Thomas Joachim, former detective of Fall River Police Department, said the name of Robin Murphy, a pimp wannabe at the time when Drew ruled the streets, popped up daily during the police investigation. Together, they controlled much of that trade and prevented others from doing it. Another young sex worker, Karen Marsden, was caught in the middle of the fierce competitiveness. So Robin Murphy is a woman, a pimp wannabe, and then Drew. Okay. Karen Marsden was caught in a fierce competitiveness. Police questioned her as a potential witness to the Levesque murders, but she refused to identify the killer and refused to offer witness protection. She was reported missing the following day. Oh, that's interesting. The details of what happened to her are as horrifying as it gets, as further evidence of satanic ritual pours out. Doreen Levesque, Robin Murphy, Karen Marsden were all tied to Carl Drew, who used Satanism to control the prostitutes. But there's a shocking twist to this already twisted tale. It took 4 years for Blumhouse and director, executive producer James Buddy Day, blah, blah, blah. Don't care about the directors, but also talking with Drew and Murphy. It took me years to really understand what happened. Went down to Fall River and went into her basement, took out these boxes of files and went to Kinko's to have them digitized. Okay. You could literally just go to Fall River Superior Court and read the trial transcripts, 11 volumes. Day went on. No one that reads those trial transcripts will come away thinking Carl Drew was guilty, despite what the jury said. Maybe it's not that difficult to see that Carl didn't have much to do with these murders, but they'd opened the door to, like, well, what really did happen. That was really kind of the journey that we wanted to go on, kind of drill down on the truth and see just how close we could get. Jane Buddy Day, Blumhouse have told this story. Yeah. I don't think so. Fall River debuts May 16th on Epics. Episodes 2 and 4 will premiere the following Sundays. Why do they have to have like cult murders on a Sunday? That's just weird and creepy. Weird and creepy. So, share this tab instead. So, Drew was denied a new trial, of course. And that was Carl Drew, 41, was convicted in 81 of those murders. Connor's 20-page decision follows the evidentiary hearing he presided over in October and November and taught in Superior Court. So this is the guy they were saying really had very little to do with it. So just imagine that one party is saying that he had very little to do with it, and the other party is saying that they had a lot to do with it. So you got these people that are writing for Epics saying, we went down to, once you read the 11 volumes of transcripts, that you're going to come away believing that Carl Drew, this pimp, murderer, Satan running cult member, had very little to do with it. Well, why don't we just take a look? This doesn't take much. We'll just go to Justitia Law. And this is where he was denied. The judge of the murder trial did not abuse his discretion in denying the defendant's request of a writ habeas corpus and testified to procedure. The attendance of an inmate witness to testify as to the contents of a note written by a third party in jail cell several months after the crime, where since the offered testimony was hearsay and not admissible under the exception of the hearsay rule, blah, blah, blah. Page 66, the murder trial evidence of the defendant's alleged involvement in an earlier murder was properly admissible in the judge's discretion to show motive. In the circumstances, the defendant in the murder case was not prejudiced by the judge's denial of his pretrial motion to allow him to be seated at counsel table during his trial. Okay. At a murder trial, the judge's instructions to the jury as to how they were to evaluate the credibility of those witnesses, which equated their decisions with those encountered in their daily lives, created no risk of miscarriage of justice. In circumstances, coincidental similarity of the stolen jewelry example used by the judge in a murder case in instructing the jury on the use of inferences, and the fact that jewelry found near the victim's remains was a factor in identifying the victim, was not error by reason of any tendency to induce the jurors to believe that the judge was expressing his belief in the Commonwealth's proof centering the idea of the body. And this goes on and on. 68 pages, 69 pages, 70 pages, 72, 73. 78 pages that it goes through, laying down why he was denied getting any sort of appeal on this, why he didn't get any further on than he did. If you want to see what it looks like, I'll do this for you because it's one of those that is a very long read, very, very long read. I'll paste it in there. You're welcome to read that whole case. I am not going to do that because it will bore 90% of you to death, and I'm not going to do that. So it's there if you want to look at it, and you can enjoy it if you like. I'll actually put it over here in on Rumble so you guys have it also. If you're really into reading law documents, you'll have fun with this one because I read through a portion of it and it took me probably about an hour to get about a third of the way through. There's some good meat in there, but it's like chasing a dog bone that is on a string. Just not enjoyable. Not enjoyable at all. So, pull this one up from 2013. Looking back, murder in Satan's name. Prostitute defendant called himself Satan, made threats. Not for the fearful, faint of heart, or squeamish, a Standard Time story dated March 10th, 1981 by Carl Rosenberg paints a gruesome picture of the unthinkable torture, mutilation, and human sacrifice in the name of Satan. The story covered the beginning of the second week of the trial of Carl Jewell, and then 26, a Fall River pimp and self-proclaimed devil worshiper. Drew was on trial for the February 1980 murder of Karen Marsden, a Fall River prostitute whose skull and other remains were found in a wooded area of Westport in April that same year. While on trial for Marsden's murder, he was also under indictment for the October 1979 killing of Doreen Levesque, another Fall River prostitute. Prosecutors claimed Drew called himself the son of Satan and killed Marsden because he had been present at the Levesque murder months earlier. The story said the star witness for the prosecution, Robert Murphy, an 18-year-old prostitute who made a deal with the prosecutors for testifying against Drew, said she killed Marsden and was possessed by Satan when she murdered the young woman. She wouldn't have killed her otherwise because they were lesbian lovers and roommates. You always hurt the ones you love the most. Is that what they're trying to say? At the trial, Murphy said that she, Drew, and two others had driven Marsden to a wooded area of Westport where they got out of the car and Murphy began dragging Marsden through the woods by her throat and hair. Drew told Marsden to give Murphy a ring she was wearing, but she refused, so Drew cut her finger off to get it. That's just rough right there. That's just rough. Murphy further testified that Marsden cried that God would help her after Drew told her she was going to suffer. Drew then threw Marsden on the ground several times, and Murphy said she heard her neck snap. Then Drew handed her a knife and ordered her to cut Marsden's throat. And what did you do? The prosecuting attorney. I cut her throat. Robert Murphy responded softly. After that, Drew tore her head from her body. He just yanked and kicked the head. Drew then carved an X in the victim's chest, spoke a different language, then put his thumb into her blood, made an X on Murphy's forehead, and told her she was a member of a satanic cult. This ritual was similar to the one performed earlier in October when Doreen Levesque was killed. In a packed and shocked courtroom, she also described seances led by Drew, who used the same incomprehensible speech to conjure the devil at satanic meetings held at the Freetown State Forest and at a Fall River apartment. A skull and a substance Murphy believed to be blood were also used in these seances. On cross-examination by the defense attorney, she said she attended 10 such cult meetings between October of 1979 and February of 1980, including the two where Levesque and Marsden were killed. The killing of Doreen Levesque was an offering of the soul of Satan, and so was the killing of Miss Marsden. Dun, dun, dun. In a Standard Time story dated March 3rd, 1981, after the first day of the murder trial, Drew had been indicted on that day for the murder of Levesque, whose beaten body was found under the bleachers of Demian Regional Vocational High School on October 13th, 1979. Her skull was crushed and her hands had been tied in the story. Murphy was also indicted for Levesque's murder but was given immunity in exchange for her testimony against Drew, and also William E. Smith of Newport, Rhode Island, also indicted for that murder. Murphy was serving a life sentence after pleading to second-degree murder of Marsden, whose body had been identified by skull fragments using X-rays. On March 14th, 1981, the Standard Times reported that Drew was found guilty of murdering Marsden, sentenced to life in prison without parole. In the report, attorney Waxler, I'd hate to have a name like that, said that the trial had been a harrowing experience with constant references to murder, dismemberment, and devil worship. There were witnesses who were absolutely in danger. You saw them shaking on the stand, he said in the story. Drew maintained his innocence, and in a personal letter he wrote when he was 50, which was published in Murderpedia, he referred to this case as a witch hunt and that Murphy had been the ringleader of this satanic cult and had committed the murders on her own. What do you think? Did she do these murders on her own? On her own. Murphy had also testified at a second murder trial in exchange for a lighter sentencing. Fingering. Why was he fingering somebody? Why was he fingering Andre? Don't finger. For the killing of Barbara Raposa, 19, another Fall River prostitute. Murphy said she was present at that slaying also, and mass parole board documents say she played a role in the murder, according to another court document. Commonwealth versus Andre Maltais. Raposa's body with hands bound, skull crush was discovered in the woods near a plant in Fall River on January 26, 1980. Maltais was accused of killing Raposa on the night of November 7th. 1979 was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison in March of 1981. That's just horrible. Just horrible. Good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. Good to see you, Cool Frog. Hope all is well with you. Hope all is well. So, all this to say is these folks here, really bad people. It's hard to know who's telling the truth because all you have are a little bit of court documents that can be taken out of context, a bunch of short stories written by other people. Nobody knows exactly what happened except for those involved. And you think that if they're all up for murder, they're going to be flipping out on one another and flipping on each other in a heartbeat. Do you think they want to serve full time for these kinds of murders? You have to think that these wonderful lives being snuffed out over prostitution, pimping, any number of reasons. Horrible, horrible thoughts. And you also have to remember that this came out about the same time that you had the satanic panic happening. Now, I've spoken of this on some of my other streams, but that really drove a lot of these kinds of murders bad bad things happening amongst all of these people. But I will say that the most bizarre portion of it, there are the investigations. Um, Many of the facts are in fact based in a world of mentally unstable young women, young men, those that manipulate each other. When it all comes to light, when it all comes out, the devil will have his due. And all of these people, whether they had a part in it or not, will be judged. I don't know the right or the wrong answer for that. But all that being said, it's a nice, easy, short stream tonight. After I figured out who was actually hacking into my system, my wife, wonderful woman. But tomorrow, I will be doing a nice reading of the Federalist Papers, and then is it tomorrow? Tomorrow's Tuesday. That might be a little bit later on. I may pre-record it tonight and just have it to premiere for tomorrow, because I don't know if I will be able to. My wife's aunt's coming into town tomorrow. We may be going out, taking her out for dinner, just as a thank you for house sitting and puppy sitting. So all of that, we'll see. We'll see if it doesn't happen tomorrow. If I don't have one tomorrow, then I won't have one until I get back towards the end of the month. So everybody, I'm losing my voice. I've been talking on the phone all day to various customers and clients, and everybody, just trying to get things organized for our trip out of town. But family time, family first. Yeah, I like the family. They're good peoples. And my wife's aunt's actually really nice. She has a show dog. I'll show you a picture of it. That show dog, pretty, pretty. And I will. Let's see. I've got it here somewhere. Where is it? Let's show you the show dog. There we go. I will bring this up here. Boom, boom, boom. Let's show you the show dog. When I say show dog, I'm talking like this is a pretty pup. I mean, you can't get any prettier than this. Ready? Here we go. Share screen, window, boom. That right there is the show dog. Yeah. That pup has more awards than, a little league team for tracking all kinds of stuff. Pretty pup. So she's adorable. He's adorable. So yeah. But that one will be staying with our pups. And she actually called and asked if there was a place nearby where she could take the pup for swimming, so she could get some, get her out there to get him some leg stretches and, exercise quite a bit, because he's getting up there in age. But yeah, she's gone through many wine runners just over the years. Each one of them were award winning. I mean, they've won tons of awards. good breeding on their part, like sons and daughters of the first lines. It's pretty cool. So that's uh that's who's going to be there. That's who's going to be come rolling in. Pretty puppy eyes, yes, very pretty. So with all that being said, I know that I'm probably cutting it a little bit short tonight. Not even an hour. But I know that I've got some really interesting stuff coming up, and I didn't want to spoil it by having it on too soon. But whenever I get back, ooh, it's gonna be a dark one. It's gonna be a really dark one, and you get to hear some of the tales that I heard in the '80s growing up around a psychotic parent. And you'll understand why my why I I'll just have to get into it at that point in time. Right now is not a good time to do it. Like I said, my voice is going, but we will have some streams while I'm out of town. I'd like to show off a little bit of Italy. I'll do some pictures and some video. Um, put some music to it or something. We'll figure it out. A little less conversation. A little less conversation. Anyhow, everybody have a wonderful night. I want to end it both here and on Rumble. And I will, if I don't see you tomorrow, then I will see everybody whenever I land in about 56, 57 hours. Maybe. We'll see. It might be a couple of days. Anyhow, everybody have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much. Peace. Peace, y'all.